Let's talk about one of your favorite projects of all time, and that is the Georgia Project.
Okay. Now this is, and this is, now we're really getting up to date right now. Uh, Back in the, I guess almost over 15 years ago in the early 90s, uh, this area began to have an increase in Latino uh, population. My youngest daughter was a paraprofessional at a Roan Street school in the city of Dalton. And about 1993, she started, literally, I mean, tears would come in her eyes about what was happening. Said, we're getting all of these little Latino children who cannot speak a word of English, and we have no teachers who can speak Spanish. And everybody just wringing their hands, and the school board's not doing anything. They're just acting like it doesn't exist. And the truth of the matter, the school board was, but because this was such a strange thing to happen in northwest Georgia, they had no idea how to go about it, nor did anyone else. And but they were sending people out to say, what do you do in a situation like this? Well, they weren't getting any answers, and they weren't getting any Spanish-speaking teachers either. And I would tell Leslie, my daughter, I said, well, I mean, this is horrible. Something really needs to be done. I'll talk to some of the school board people, but I say, I'm not an educator. Well, Daddy, you can do something. And I know one of the media people, I asked my daughter Leslie, so why did you think your daddy could do something about it? She said, well, he always did. And anyway, the next year it really got more pronounced, and she enlisted the aid of the teachers. Then the teachers started coming to me and saying, don't get me in trouble, don't reveal what I'm telling you, but we've got a horrible situation. These kids keep coming into our school. They're wonderful little kids. They behave. They are not a problem, except we can't talk with them, and they can't speak with us. And it's just getting worse and worse. We're trying as hard as we can, but we're making no progress. And so with that, I just said, well, let me think about it, Leslie. And the editor of the newspaper here was a friend who was a sort of a political ally, and I got him. And about that time, the Chamber of Commerce asked me to chair a committee that would be a group of us older guys, mentors, that we would just gather together, a group of mentors that would talk with young people about what we had learned through life and all of that. And that was to be my project, and I turned it down. And then I was asked again if I would do it. I said, well, wait a minute. I'll accept that role if I can choose the project. And so I told them my project is to try to do something about this influx of non-English speaking children in our public schools. And they said, okay. So I got together a committee of just 4 people. And but that gave us an aura of legitimacy, rather than me just getting a group of people and say, look, we want to go into the school system and find out what you all are doing wrong. That doesn't really make you welcome, But since it sort of had the auspices of the Chamber of Commerce, and that I contacted them, and they, folks at Roan Street, and they said, delighted to have you, and we'll schedule where you can go and with whom you can talk. And I told my folks, I said, we're not going to pay any attention to where they're going to tell us to go or to whom we have the ability to talk. We're going to talk with anyone we want to. And by that time, the teachers had told me some folks for us to talk with. and we went in, and our eyes, I will never forget it. I believe in all of my life, I had noticed more brown-skinned folks in the community and automobiles and things, but I had no earthly idea what was happening in Dalton, Georgia, and northwest Georgia, where you would see at that time 1 out of every 3 children was brown-skinned. More brown-skinned than black-skinned. And so this was really shocking. And I began to write everyone. Wrote the governor, wrote the chairman of the Board of Regents, wrote, and all these people would reply to me. I wrote the superintendent of schools. I wrote, about that time, Zell Miller had appointed Johnny Isaacson to the chair of the State Board of Education. I wrote and talked with Johnny Isaacson. And all these folks got interested. Not that they really did anything to help, but they thought this was finally, and this is when Superintendent, what's her name, Simcoe was the, and she just passed it on down to, but it got down to a person that really understood what I was talking about, and she contacted me. And she sent me material to read and people to contact throughout this country, which I did. And we began to formulate an idea as to how we could do something to help the teachers and students in the public schools of Dalton. And there, the enrollment in like Brown Street was growing from 1 out of 3 to it finally got up to 9 out of 10. 90% Latino enrollment, and it's just unbelievable. But in the meantime, we were making some progress as that went along, and I was getting a lot of cooperation out of the leaders in the community, the industry, because certainly the industry was the reason these folks were coming, to fill the jobs that were really critical at that time, because the carpet industry was just running out of people, and they needed these people. And they were good workers, and with a rare exception, were all, model contributing members of the community.